All right. What up? What up? How you doing?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Oh, all good on this beautiful Sunday.
Yeah, same here.
So today we're doing something a little different. It's not a live thing. It's not a review thing. This is more of a, I don't know, 101, I guess we'll call it. We kind of keep getting questions like, how do we get started? Or where do we go for step one? So the whole purpose of this thing today is literally how to get started, because we still get that question pretty frequently. So this
Yep.
whole video is targeted, of course, for brand new people like looking to get into this game, which to get into it can be overwhelming. You got stocks, you got options, you got futures, you got this teacher, that teacher, this method, that method. So anyway, we're gonna break down some of that stuff and chop it up, try to simplify it, do our thing.
That's right.
Intro time.
Get it.
Okay. So, in an attempt to share information effectively, we took it back to the school days, to the corporate America days.
You
And
did a
we
good job
did,
on this, man.
it's been a long time. I was in corporate America for many years, had to make many a PowerPoint. This is probably the first time I have used PowerPoint since like 2000 and I don't know, 18, 19, 18, 5 years, give or take, whatever. It's been a minute. So go easy on me. And
Do you
I
want
am,
to?
yep.
Okay, cool.
So we're going to start here. That was the last slide, but we're
All
going to
good.
get to the last slide. This is the first slide. So, like I said, the whole purpose of this, right? It's how to get started, because it is overwhelming. And dude, I remember, I mean, I even had like a tiny bit of experience. I worked at Wells Fargo for a brief period of time. I worked there for like a year, and then the financial collapse happened. And, of course, everybody lost their jobs.
Right.
But I had a little bit of experience with the markets, right? Of course, it was all mortgage-backed securities, so a little bit different than what we do now. So even for myself, getting into this was still incredibly overwhelming, and it took me a long time to even figure out a given direction. Like
Same here, man. Same
super
here.
hard.
I mean,
So
it is. It takes a while to find your direction, and it's extremely difficult to try to explain it to somebody. I mean, because
oh
like
hell yeah,
we've been experiencing here lately, just trying to you know explain stuff to people, and they'll be asking questions like, and I'm like, oh man, I've really got to step it back. Like I can't
yeah,
even, I've really got to step it back to, try to put yourself in somebody's shoes that's just now getting into it, and I guess that's what we're trying to do.
yeah, for sure. Because I have people, that I went to school with that'll ask me like, how do I get started? And I'm like, damn, I really don't even know how to answer your question. Like, not well.
Yeah, man, and it's extremely time consuming to explain it individually to each person.
It is.
I
So
mean,
this,
I told you I sat down with my dad yesterday for
that's
like
right.
4 hours, just helping him just just try to explain how to open a brokerage account.
Yep. My neighbor came over here not too long ago, and I sat down with him trying to get him, started or share some basic info. And I feel like I did that very poorly just because it's such a broad topic. But anyway,
I
we put
swear,
this
dude.
together to try to filter some quality information effectively and tunnel it in a way that it directs people in the right direction. So anyway, let's just get into this thing. So, we were talking and we were like, what do we really, or not we, what do people really need to get started? And that's the whole purpose of this. So We already kind of said, like, first thing you need is some direction, or a direction, because you got small caps, you got large caps, you got futures, you got options, and you have a
There's crypto. I
crypto.
don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anything about crypto.
I don't either, really, but in all of those things that are listed, there's different ways to play them. You can scalp, you can swing, you can day trade, you can go long, you can go short. Options has tons of different options, no pun intended.
I don't know
Um,
anything about them.
yeah, I mean, you got 0 day till expires. You got, I mean, the time frames and the Greeks and the thetas and it. I'm not very well versed on options either. So first of all, though, you got to pick a direction, right? What we do primarily, 90% of what we do is small caps.
Yep.
So because that's what we do, everything that we're going to talk about largely is going to be related to small caps because that's where we are focused. That is what we are best at, most comfortable explaining, talking about, and hopefully helping people with. So, first of all, there's options beyond what we're going to talk about. But for us to talk about things we're not really well versed in is just kind of silly. So,
Yep. I agree.
well, just got to keep it real, man. Like, we're good at small caps. Um, that's what we're gonna talk about. So, the direction that we're going to go is small caps. Second, you got to have a broker. You don't have a broker, you literally can do nothing. Other than learn, you can learn, right? Learn, but you can't trade. You got to have a broker to execute trades. Um, and that, to be honest, for me when I first started, was also an overwhelming choice. But now I look at it like, yes, it matters, but it also isn't the single most important thing. I used to think it was like the single most important thing, and I think it's an important factor, but it's not like a make or break. But anyway,
I mean, yeah,
uh,
I started out like with a damn Robinhood account. Like
oh
when I
yeah,
first, I mean,
yeah.
I, it was something like that, which I wouldn't recommend. But
Yeah, I had Robinhood too at one point. I think everybody did. They changed the game. You could just do it from your phone very easily. So it was just they changed the game. Um,
2019, dude.
they changed it up. So you gotta have a broker. And then the last thing, of course, that you would need continually, and you can never stop getting enough of, is tools and educational material. Like
Absolutely.
the markets are always changing. You will always and forever be learning and adapting, which I like. I can appreciate that. That way, you don't get into cycles and it becomes monotonous. Like it's a constant learning. So those are the things that we felt are the most important to at least get started in this game. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we already kind of touched on it, right? You got a bunch of different directions you can go. You got stocks, you got options, you got futures. This just kind of breaks down what each one is. Stocks, most people knows what those are. You're buying in a company, right?
Yep.
Options, a little bit different. They're more contract based and they're time based. And we're not going to, we aren't going to talk about options in this, but they're there. Same with futures. Derivative contracts, trading of certain commodities, could be oils, could be currencies, could be the markets as a whole.
I will say
Again,
futures are, to me at least, and I've had some people tell me that they think options are easier to understand, but to me, futures are easier to understand because I have a stock trading background. So for me to go into trading futures a little bit, it wasn't too difficult. They're very similar, although it is contracts. It's it's like shares.
right,
It's
right,
you're not it's there's not like I mean the contracts do expire, but it's different than options. It's not like and there's I mean I don't know. It's similar to shares to me, so it's easier to understand in that aspect. But like we said, you'll have to figure that out which one of these suits your personality. And if you're
Yeah.
to figure it, if you're wanting to be, learning stuff from us, it's probably going to be stocks.
Yeah, because that's primarily what we do. So, um, moving on. So, we've touched on this numerous times. However, I don't feel like we can touch on this enough because there's
We
always
can't.
confusion around this topic.
Yeah.
And I get it because it's just so it's just not what you've heard growing up. Everything you've heard growing up in school, even college, like you buy something low, you sell it high, you make profit. That's just what we've always been taught. Even in grade school, you buy lemonade you make it for 50 cents, you sell it for $1. Like everything we know is that.
Yep.
So this is what everybody knows, right? You go long, you buy a stock low, you sell it high, you keep the profit. That's what everybody knows. The other half of it, though, is the short selling part. And for me personally, that's 90% of what I do.
It's
You're
probably,
better at going long than I am.
I mean, it's still probably, I'd say, a good 80 to 85% of what I do. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, probably. Like,
I don't know. I go long. I go long a decent amount of time.
and I think it depends on the cycle. You had a stretch there where you were longing pretty consistently, and it was just maybe a cyclical thing. Like the cycle we were in just deemed it necessary for your strategies.
Yeah, I mean, and I can usually tell when it's changing. Like, and we've gotten into that. I won't get into it too much right now.
Yeah.
It for small caps, in our opinion, the most probable way to trade them is short selling.
Yes, like the overarching theme of small caps is the companies suck. They're pieces of crap company that you'll never hear of. Not 90% of you never heard of. So 90% of these companies also fail. Their stock price continually declines. They have these artificial pumps where their stock goes crazy, but it always, typically 90% of the time, over time, comes back down. It's a market inefficiency, and that's what we're taking advantage of, basically.
And
But
what you were talking about that we can't touch on enough, and I mean, this is something that I'll rant about it, because I try to explain it to people. I've tried to explain it to people, you know, uh, just in all forms of everything I've done. Anytime somebody talks to me about stock trading and they talk to me about what I do, I explain I'm a short seller. I can't tell you how many times I've said, yeah, I mostly go short. And they're like, oh, yeah, all I do is short too. And I'm like, well, how? You're trading on Robinhood? And they're like, oh, I mean, I'm never in it for longer than an hour or two. And I'm like, well, you're talking about going long.
yep,
Going long can be you can long something for half a second. You can long something for half your life. It doesn't matter. If you're buying something, you're going long. If you're shorting something, it's this.
yep. So out to the side of this graphic, it's just a basic example. And all through school, college specifically, we were told if we read directly from PowerPoints, we fail our presentation immediately. So this goes against everything I know. But I'm going to read this word for word, just in case people can't see it. So what is short selling, right? You can see the graphic. You're selling high, you're buying low. It's the complete opposite of what you are accustomed to. And you make money in that process as the stock goes down. So I'm going to read this example, just a quick little breakdown. So imagine a trader who believes that stock XYZ, currently trading at $50, is going to decline in price. They borrow, keyword here is borrow, 100 shares from their broker, and they sell them. They're borrowing 100 shares from their broker, and they are selling them to another investor. That part gets confusing. The main thing is you're borrowing 100 shares from your broker. Doesn't really matter who you're selling them to. Who cares? Whoever
You're
the buyer
just selling them onto the market. You could,
is. Yeah. Doesn't matter who buys them.
yeah, it doesn't matter. Somebody's always got to lose for you to win.
Yeah. So you're borrowing 100 shares from your broker. You're selling them. So you, as a trader, you're now short. 100 shares, since the broker has sold something that you technically don't own because you borrowed it. Now, that was only made possible, again, because you borrowed those shares from your broker. Anyway, a week later, the company whose shares you shorted is now trading at 40 bucks, right? You, as the trader, decide you want to close that position. You close that short position and you buy those shares back that you borrowed. You're buying them back now at $40 a share. So you borrowed them at 50, you bought them back at 40. So the trader's profit on the short sale, minus any commissions or interest, whatever, is $1,000. You borrowed them at 50, you sold them back at 40, or I'm sorry, you bought them at 50.
I got that right. You
borrowed them at 50, you bought them back at 40. There's that $10 difference. $10 times 100 shares, it's $1,000.
And when you buy your short position, when you buy out of your short position, typically people call it buy to cover.
Right.
You just say I covered.
Yep. So when we say we short something, that's us borrowing it and technically selling it. That's what we call, we're shorting it. And then when we buy it back, that's us, like you said, covering our position.
Yep.
So that example, it's a good example, but it overcomplicates it a little bit. But you're just literally doing the exact opposite. You're clicking the buttons in the reverse order.
Yep.
And the broker takes care of the rest. But there is a caveat to this, to the short selling part of it, that I want to touch on too. It's just right here. So the majority of what we short is considered HTB, which is hard to borrow. So you have hard to borrow stocks, which are exactly that. They are hard to get the borrows. Then you have ETB, which is easy to borrow. So if you see the top of this graphic, right, you can see where it says client places short order. Out to the right of that, you see where it says ETB stocks. So it's easy to borrow. The broker just lends you those shares because they're easy to acquire. Things like Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, things like that. Easy for your broker to get those shares. Usually doesn't cost a dime. Usually they're free. However, the stocks that we short, these pieces of crap company, usually there's not as many units of stock available. So where it says client places short order, right below that, where it says HTB stock, there's a couple extra steps. Main one being the broker has to locate those shares for you because they're hard to find. So your broker has to locate them. Your broker typically is going to locate them at a price. Could be 10 cents a share, could be a penny a share, whatever. Whatever that price is, you then have to accept that borrow fee, the borrow cost. We talk about that a lot. Borrows were cheap, borrows were expensive, they killed us, whatever.
Yep.
That's you accepting that price, and then the broker lends you those shares. So we'll touch a little bit more on that when it comes to brokers, because we're going to talk about brokers and how that matters when it comes to picking a broker. But just know that there's a difference when you're shorting between easy to borrow stock and hard to borrow stock. If it's easy to borrow, it's easy, free, typically. Hard to borrow, a little bit tougher. Sometimes you can't even find shares. Sometimes they're super expensive. We typically don't have a problem with either one because our broker is awesome.
Yep.
And we'll get to that. So broker, all right, you picked a direction. We're pretending you pick small caps because that's what we're going to talk about. But then you get into which broker should I choose? You've used all these, right?
Every single one of them.
Okay, so have I. So that's the thing. When you get into trading, especially when you have a lack of direction, you tend to open an account with everybody at one point or another. But we're going to talk about
I've still got open accounts with all of these except for Trade Zero.
Yeah, I don't have a Trade Zero anymore. I don't have E-Trading anymore. I have Thinkorswim.
I have an account. I just don't have money in it.
Yeah. I still have money in my well, not anymore. I will if OTC gets hot again, but we'll get on that.
In E-Trade?
No, I think TD Ameritrade. I'll
I
if
mean, I've got like
OTC
five
gets out
bucks
again.
in TD just for the charts.
Same, same. Which cheat code? We'll tell you about that too.
Yeah,
Um, so brokers, right? You got big box brokers. You got the big dogs. That's TD Ameritrade, E Trade. Those are like the
Schwab.
brokers. Yeah. Well, I think now Schwab and TD Ameritrade they've merged.
Oh, did they?
Pretty
Okay.
sure. Yeah. Um, those are the ones that everybody knows of. Those are the ones that people have heard of. Then you have specialized brokers: Trade Zero, Cobra, Guardian,
Centerpoint.
Centerpoint. Um, and
Sure
we'll talk
Trader,
about.
Speed Trader.
Yep, there is not a lack of brokers. To be honest with you, there's a lot of freaking brokers. Um, so big box brokers, right? The big guys: TD Ameritrade, E Trade. Some pros and cons. Pros: you don't need a lot of money to get an account with these guys. I think it's like $500, maybe 1,000 to open an account. Pretty minimal. Um,
I don't
then you
even know
have
if it's that much, man.
might not be. They could have lowered it at 250, but it's not much to open an account with them. And then with those type of brokers, minimal fees. A lot of times executions are free. Just not a lot of fees with them, and they're easily accessible. With some brokers, depending on where you live, sometimes you can't get an account with them just because of where you live. But with these guys, typically doesn't matter. You can get an account with these guys pretty much anywhere you live for the most part. They're a little more accessible outside of the US. Again, depends where you live, but largely. However, cons, they are restricted access to hard to borrow stocks. Sometimes they have them, but it is incredibly, incredibly rare. Typically, the big
Yeah.
box brokers do not have access for you to short these hard to borrow stocks. These small cap companies that we largely trade on the short side, you would have a hell of a time finding shares from these type of brokers. It's just they're not short seller friendly.
I will say one that's fairly big that is, I'll say, and I mean, we don't get anything from them. There's no, I have an account with them. I mean, I might have like a few dollars left in it. I used to use them as interactive brokers.
Yeah.
And Valentine, he uses them, and he sometimes is able to find shares
Yep.
for hard to borrows on there.
I know with them, at least because it's been years since I've used them too. They used to have a share limit on how many you could acquire on hard to borrow. I don't know if that's still the case, but
I don't know, man. That was how I got started short selling was interactive brokers.
okay.
Yeah.
So these are the big box. Now, again, depending on what you do, maybe they work for you. If you're only trading large cap companies and you're not interested in small caps or you're doing options, you could use a big box broker and be completely fine. You would have no issue. So it just depends what you want to do. However, specialized brokers, which is who we use, and some guys, regardless of whether they trade large caps, small caps, options, whatever, still will use specialized brokers. And there's reasons for that. But one of the main pros, I guess, for us with these specialized brokers is better access to the hard to borrow shorts. That's number one for us.
Yep.
If
Got to have it.
Yeah, like if we don't have the shorts, we can't trade.
I mean, that's
Game
that's
over.
like our whole. I mean, that's our whole basis on the style of trading we do is would not be possible without brokers like Cobra.
Yep. Yeah, if we didn't have the shares to short, we would just not be trading. Like it would be game over. So,
We'd have to
um,
do something else. Yeah.
yeah. And a couple other pros, and this is why some guys, even if they only trade large caps or small caps on the long side or whatever, still use these specialized brokers, is because of these two other reasons: customer service and execution speed and customization with their platform. And I wrote DOS because the platform many of these specialized brokers use is that DOS platform. It's a direct access system to the markets. Most consider it the single best platform for trading, and I would agree.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what I use. That's what you use.
Hmm.
I mean, I think everybody we trade with uses DAS.
Yep,
Um,
pretty much.
and
And one thing, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've heard that there might be a way to link TD Ameritrade to DAS, but
They just started that like this year.
I
You
just,
can do that now.
yeah, I mean, I just, to me, I love the layout of DAS, the way I mean, it's what I'm used to now. You know, I can't trade on anything else.
Same. That's what we both use. And something else I want to touch on here too, real quick, is the customer service aspect, especially when you're trading with any real size or with a sense of urgency. There have been scenarios where I lose power or my internet goes out and I am in a position and I'm like, oh shit, I need to get out of this position because I have no clue what's going on because power went out, internet went out, whatever. I can literally pick up the phone and call Cobra, and somebody, a person, will answer that phone call within seconds. And I can tell them who I am, what I want them to do, and within a minute, it is done. If you have to call a big box broker to do that
Oh yeah,
or to do anything, you're going to be on the phone for probably an hour. It's just the way it is. Like, and then when you first call the big box brokers, you're going to be talking to the robot or the AI, whatever. Um, so customer service, huge with these specialized brokers, especially with Cobra in particular. I'm not going to speak highly of Trade Zero's customer service, just the way it is.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've had some bad encounters with their customer service and things happening.
Yep.
But
Um,
Cobra's been great, and
yeah, zero complaints.
I'm not I'm not just being biased to them. I mean, they really are the best broker I've used.
Yep.
I mean,
Now, however, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's worth. I mean, and they're cheaper too, so there's really no reason not to use them. You know, if you're trading over PDT.
Right. Yeah. So it's one of those things like you get what you pay for, like so many things in life. But where the cons are listed, it is what it is. With Cobra or these really specialized brokers, you oftentimes have fees for trading executions. You have to pay to trade. But there's obviously reasons for that. You get much better executions. There's no payment for order flow. If you want to Google that and find out what it is, it's the devil. It's the worst thing ever. Look it up. And then the other con is higher capital requirements to open an account. With Cobra, I think you need 27 or 30,000 to open an account, something like that, somewhere in that ballpark.
It's 27 right now.
27 to open an account with Cobra. With Trade Zero, and the reason I have Trade Zero listed is because you can short sell through them, and I think you only need like $3,000 to $5,000 to
It's
open an account with them.
2,500.
$2,500, and you can open an account with Trade Zero, and you can short pretty much anything you can think of. However, again, pros and cons, and I don't want to go too long on this subject, but Trade Zero's borrow costs are astronomically higher than Cobra or many other brokers. But you only need $2,500 to open an account. I will say Cobra has their below PDT branch called Venom. I personally have never used them, but if they are part of Cobra just under PDT, I would have to assume they are pretty damn good. Just my guess. But
Yeah.
again, we don't want to spend the whole video comparing brokers. There is a lot of different brokers. Cobra's the best. If you have the ability to get them, I would. If you don't and you want to get into shorting small caps, Trade Zero is an option. Venom is an option. But again, you get what you pay for, and it is what it is. So you got to have a broker. The broker does matter, but it's not the single most important thing when it comes to your trading. Like, your broker shouldn't be the reason you either make or lose money consistently over time.
Right.
I'll say that. So, moving on. Unless you got anything else you want to add about brokers. Do you have anything about brokers?
Um, Not really, man. I think we've touched on it enough.
Yeah, there's a lot of brokers. Visit their websites, check them out. One thing I would say about Cobra is you can always call them and they will tell you anything you need to know over the phone. Their fee structure is very transparent, as most brokers are. Their fee structures are transparent. But anyway, if you want to get into short selling these small caps, you got to have a broker that can do that. So
That's
you
right.
have to at least keep that in mind. So you have a direction, right? Small caps for the sake of this presentation. You have a broker. The next thing you have to have are some tools to help you trade effectively. So the next few slides and what we're going to talk about is some things that we use every single day to help us trade, right? They're not necessary, they are helpful, and they are tools. Like if you're a mechanic and you have an awesome wrench set, you're going to be very effective versus somebody who only has one size wrench. It's just part of it. Tools in the tool belt. We've all heard the million analogies that come with that.
Right.
When was the last time you traded without trade ideas?
Uh, it's been a
Right?
while, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, in one form or another, I'm always using it every
Yeah.
day.
So scanners, right? Scanners basically, it's what helps you find stocks that are in play or helps you find stocks that are for your setup. And I put quiets the noise in a sense because there's I don't know how many stocks, thousands upon thousands. And you need to limit that to a sizable, usable list that you can work with. You can't really do that without a scanner. You will be like lost in an endless field of corn that you can never find your way out of.
I mean, you have to have a scanner. There's no way you can trade without a scanner unless you just trade the same instrument every day.
Good point. You're right. Because some people do. Some people only trade. Well, but anyway, you really do need a scanner. We use trade ideas, and a couple of these screenshots are what my trade ideas scanners, just a couple of them look like. Biggest gainer scanner and a day one gapper scanner. And the great thing about trade ideas is the amount of customization that they allow. Like the things that are colored green for me is favorable, the things that are white, not so favorable. You can even color code things red if it's bad. It's endless amounts of customization, endless amounts of scans to be created. When it comes to scanners on the market, I think they are hands down the best. I don't think you can find a better one. However, it's not super necessary. That's why we put alternatives at the bottom. So FinViz, you brought up FinViz. I
Yeah,
completely forgot about FinViz. So what is
I used
FinViz?
to use them. I mean, it's just another. It's a web based scanner or just a tool. You can key in whatever it is that you want to see. Uh, Top gainers with this market cap, this float, between this price. I mean, you can get it. You can go as deep or as shallow as you want. I used to use that mainly just because the scanner I was using when I started didn't show a lot of things like market cap, float, all that good stuff. So I would go plug it into FinViz, figure it out. Obviously, it's much easier now with trade ideas. I've got everything right there in front of me.
Yeah, and you can even see on that screenshot, the top screenshot, it's got the float there, it's got market cap there, the amount of volume, the institutional ownership, things we look at every day. That's just all right there for me.
Yeah,
But FinViz, it's a free alternative. And something else we put as an alternative, TOS stands for Thinkorswim. That is TD Ameritrade's platform. They have built-in scanners. Most brokers now have a built-in biggest gainers or breakout scanner or very common scans that you would find with any technology or any company. So there are alternatives out there that are free. So that's why I put in other built-in broker scanners, because most brokers now, Trade Zero has it, DOS has it, E-Trade had it, Thinkorswim has it. Basic gainer scanners, but they're basic. If you're looking to expand upon that, or really you found a strategy that works for you, that's where you got to start getting into things like Trade Ideas. They have made my life incredibly easier when it comes to finding plays, and there's certain setups I literally could not trade without them. Parabolics, couldn't trade them without them.
Yeah, same here, man. Like that's, and shorting parabolics is like my favorite play. So
Yep, and without Trade Ideas, like
I could,
I
I
couldn't do
wouldn't
it.
be, yeah, I wouldn't have that play.
Yep,
I mean, that's to me, that's like one of. I mean, I love short selling and parabolic move.
yep. So scanners are hugely important, but there's a lot of options out there. But Trade Ideas is our number one recommendation, hands down. Um, we're gonna put links in the description for all these tools we're talking about: Trade Ideas, Cobra, ones we'll get into further. But anyway, Trade Ideas. I can't remember the last time I traded without them. But anyway, next tool that I don't think everybody needs, everybody does need. Like, you need this just as much as you need a broker, or just as much as you need a scanner. Like, when I was in corporate America, we had a stupid saying. I hated it. Plan, do, review. PDR. Plan, do, review. The fact that I still remember that bothers me. But in trading, you kind of have the same thing. And we've said it on some of our shows. All right. We plan, trade, review. Like, you have to. You create your watch list, you plan your trades, you make the trades, and then you journal the trade. Same type of thing. But journaling software or a journal is just critically important. Like, you have to journal every trade you make. And I put even things like mindset, because that really does start to matter. For example, if the first trade you make on a day is bad, what happens after that bad trade matters. If after you make a bad trade, does it get worse? Because if it does, then maybe after you make a losing trade, you need to stop trading, at least until you figure that out, that emotion. It just shows you what is and isn't working, period. That includes,
that's a huge one for me.
Yeah, like, it shows you what setups are working. Maybe the day of the week. Like, I can tell you right now, and I learned this the hard way. For me, and you and I have talked about this a lot, I've told you this numerous times, but my best trades, my 75% of them come within the first hour of the day, as far as opening a position. Beyond that, I typically don't trade unless it is a midday parabolic setup, because if I trade afternoon time, I get chopped and screwed and lose, and I suck like after 11 a.m. our time. So if I don't trade from 11 to 3, I just will save money. I just will not lose money. Like, statistically, that was very clear for me, but I wouldn't have known that unless I journaled. So we put TraderSync in here because that's who we use. They are phenomenal. You can literally import your trades directly to them, and they break everything down for you statistically. They will show you things like time of day, days of the week, profitability by price, profitability by setup. I mean, it breaks down everything, and it does it very efficiently. And it opens your eyes to a lot of opportunity, or ways where you can not lose money.
Yep.
So, no, TraderSync is not 100% necessary. However, yes, a journal is necessary. Hence, our alternatives there are both free. Excel. I put Excel. You use Google Sheets.
Yep.
And I put Excel, which is technically not free. You have to pay for a license. I use Excel, but you can use Google Sheets, which I think is free, right?
It's free. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
And
been
it's
using
just
it
like
forever.
Excel, same layout, looks the same, Same concept. It's free. And Evernote, it's journaling software, and it's pretty powerful. You can upload charts into it. I mean, you can. Evernote's pretty damn powerful.
I
And
got Evernote pulled up on my computer. Every time I turn my computer on, it pops up.
yeah, Evernote is great. One thing
Use
I
it,
would say
use it
about
for everything.
yeah, they're great. One thing I would say about TraderSync that I do like, or other journaling softwares, and I guess you could technically do this with Evernote because you can take a picture and put it into Evernote. But with TraderSync, they literally it uploads your trades and saves a chart in your journal, so you can pull up the chart and see where you bought and sold at, and it paints it on the chart for you, and it just stays there for forever. So you can literally review your trades on your chart. You can do the same thing with Evernote. You just got to do it manually, but you got to journal. Period, as they say.
Absolutely, I agree.
So those two tools, scanners, journals, probably the two most important tools beyond your broker, in our opinion. Now, we have a couple others on here that we're going to show. They're helpful, more of a time saver than necessary. But we got to shout out Scripts Trade. We use them every day. In the screenshot I have here on the left, it's their gap stats. It basically shows the historical behaviors and statistics of a stock that is gapped up. And it basically gives us the history of that, which is very beneficial to know. Past behavior helps predict future behavior. The same way with people as it is with stocks. I hate to say that, but it's true. Well, okay. Anyway, let me not get on that.
Hey, it's true, man.
But Scripts Trade, they're a coding company. They basically make custom scripts that you can put onto your charts to help with all sorts of things. I don't want to spend a lot of time here. You can check out their website. We'll put the link in the description. Scripts to Trade, scriptstotrade.com. However, I trade with a bunch of their products every day. I know we both use gap stats though every single day.
I use the gap stats and the relative volume.
Yep, I use both of those as well.
And the what's the one with the white arrows? The unusual volume.
Abnormal volume, yeah, unusual, abnormal.
Abnormal volume. I love that one.
Yep.
It's really helpful.
I have quite a few of their products, and I have been trading with them now for years, and can't imagine trading without them. So check them out. It makes our job easier, but I would say gaps. If you pick up one thing from them, gap stats.
Yeah, it's important, man. I mean that like you said, the history of what this stock did. If you're wanting to short sell this gapper, how did it act the last time it gapped? The last time it gapped up in the morning, did it fade or did it run like crazy? You know?
Right. And that provides a huge edge.
Yeah, I mean, you're not. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of. I mean, you know, theoretically, you could use a certain percentage stop and short every gapper that meets your criteria. You know, if you wanted to be like a systematic trader, and just use the gap stats.
Yep. Hugely beneficial. So the next one, we again use this daily. It's not necessary, but this is a massive time saver. So FlashSec or Dilution Tracker is another company. Mm-hmm. Basically what they do is they take these stocks, these companies, and they break down all their SEC filings to make it very easy, quick to read, analyze, and know what the hell's going on. Because if you've ever read through an SEC filing, it can be 20 pages of legal jargon bullshit that is super hard to decipher if you don't know keywords to look at.
Yep.
So this company takes what's in those filings, breaks it down for you and puts it right in front of you very fast, very efficiently, very quickly. We trade with them every day. I can't imagine trading without them, but it's not like the single most important thing. Like,
Sorry.
nah, you're fine. We got kids, man.
I'll look at it in just a little bit, okay? Thank you, baby.
He has
Yeah,
a
that one.
second one on the way, folks. Gonna be double
Thank you.
trouble here real soon.
Yeah, he just got home. Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
I got a rock collection. I got 3 rocks, 2 kitty socks, and I'm gonna put it in rock.
It's job number 1 right there.
That's right. Oh, anyway.
No, it's all good.
Sorry,
This
man.
is a time. No, it's fine. This shit. I told you before. The only reason mine don't bust in here is because they're older and they know I'll beat them. Not really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't beat them. I wouldn't beat them.
Oh,
But,
I know.
Flash Sec, we trade with them every day. At this point, can't imagine trading without them. Super helpful. Major time saver. That's the biggest thing with these. Time saving. At some point, we've talked about doing a video on filings and like digging through SEC filings, which we may do in the future. And then at that point, people could be like, holy shit, yeah, digging through SEC filings sucks. But FlashSec, absolutely worth the dilution tracker, whoever.
I can't dig through filings, man.
It takes a long, long time, and it is quite the task. So FlashSec takes
it's
a
really
lot of
just
that
not,
time.
I don't want to say it's not worth it to me, because it just depends. But I'm usually not going to devote like that much time into one trade. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm going to plan my trade, and I'm going to look at dilution tracker or flash sec and just see some general things like, oh, I know this company needs cash. And I say I won't. I'll spend some time planning one out, but I'm not going to read 20 pages of something.
Right. So this is, it's a time saver, and it is very valuable information that they output for you to make it very easy to read. So those are some tools that we use every single day that help. But other educational material. I love books. We sometimes do book recommendations. I don't think you can read enough books about trading or stock market, finance, psychology, whatever. I think there's just so much value to be had with books. So we picked out 5 that I think starting out, right? This whole thing is predicated towards your starting out. Day 1, where do you go? Because there's a lot of books out there. So we tried to pick some out that I think are just helpful. So big red headline. Read these before you read any trading psychology book. I am not saying trading psychology is not important, but we have said before, and I will continue to say it again, and I will continue to fight anybody tooth and nail if they disagree with this. But you have to have an understanding of the markets and a strategy and some sort of process that works before you spend time or money or whatever into getting your psychology right. It is hugely important. Not saying it's not, but I could give a shit about what somebody's psychology is if they don't even have a process. Like, you're putting the cart before the horse.
Exactly. And to me right now, like, trading psychology is like the number one thing I'm focusing on right now. I'm trying to get a more psychological edge, I guess you'd say, on myself, because me and you, we've got our processes. We know what we're doing, but I feel like you never can. You're always improving on your psychology, but you have to have the know-how of actually trading and a plan and a statistical edge before the psychology is even going to matter. Because how are you going to know that you're going to psych yourself out? I mean, in a way, if you're not concrete on your plan, on your trade plan. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
It would
Absolutely.
you wouldn't even know that your psychology was off if you didn't already if you weren't sure on your plan.
Right. So, I mean, 100% right. Like, you always have to work on psychology. Hugely important. But it's the whole cart before the horse thing. So, these were actually, they may have been the first 5 books I read. Honestly, I could be wrong about that, but they were up there. So, the first 2 intro books, Broad Coverage. A lot of people know who Tim Sykes is and Andrew Aziz. They have been around a long time. Some people love them, some people hate them, to each their own. I don't think that part matters. The 2 important things with those books, and I'm not saying you got to read both, you can pick one or the other because they're very similar. But the main thing with those books and what I've told people is it just teaches you the very, very basics. One basic being terminology. So you can have further
Huge,
discussions. Yeah, like you've got to be
huge.
able to talk the lingo and know the terminology before you read other books. Like, for example, on the right side of this graphic, you see books about volume. But if you don't even know what volume is when you're talking about a stock, those books do you literally no good. So
Exactly.
you,
I like the complete penny stock course. I mean, we can have we'll joke around about Tim Sykes all the time, but that's a solid book, man. That was like, and I don't read as much as you, but that is one that I did read.
yeah, and it just teaches you the basics, like very basic patterns, basic terminology. What is short selling? What is a penny stock? The basic stuff that you got to have to expound upon. Now, in those books, especially those first 2 books, they are going to sell themselves on courses and go here and buy this. And I'm not saying to do all that. I'm just saying those books provide a very overarching, broad coverage on terminology and day trading. So I would leave it there. But they were both very beneficial for starting out.
Yeah, I won't
Look,
make any comment on any of that other stuff.
yeah. The books are helpful with terminology, getting the lingo, learning the language, and you go from there. Third one, technical analysis. It is a technical analysis book. Also, the book is called Technical Analysis Using Multiple Time Frames. That book for me was huge. I guess the thing I learned most from that book is how important multiple time frames are. Because when I first started trading, I was looking at like a 1-day chart, maybe 2-minute, 5-minute, whatever. I'd kind of dabble with different time frames, but that book really opened me up to like using multiple time frames, how to use multiple time frames. It's just a very good book on time frames and technical analysis across multiple time frames, meaning like daily charts, hourly charts over huge, moments of time. Could be a year, could be 2 year, could be 5 year, 10 days, 15 days, whatever. But that book for me was a game changer as far as technical analysis goes.
Oh yeah.
Very good book.
And anybody that says technical analysis doesn't matter is wrong.
Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
all
obviously,
about. Go ahead.
we pretty much like 98% of our trading is technical analysis.
Yeah,
I'd
like we're
say.
all about confluence, but damn, we can't have confluence without technical analysis. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
technical analysis is pretty much the basis of all of our trading.
and maybe for some other forms of trading, technical analysis isn't as important. But I would say for what we do in small caps, like it's hugely important. Like,
You can't day trade without technical analysis. I don't care what anybody says.
I would agree with that. So that book is hugely important. It's also a pretty easy read. Has some good examples, good charts, good read. Next 2 books, all about volume, which I think most people would agree. There's 1,000 indicators you can put on your chart. You got Fibonacci's, you got retracements, you got VWAPs, you got EMAs, you got SMAs, you got moving averages. You have 1,000 different indicators, but they are all lagging indicators. Indicators are lagging. The only two that really don't lag is price and volume. I consider
Right.
price and volume to be the single most important things when it comes to trading. All of the indicators I use revolve around volume. I don't have anything on my charts, pretty sure, that don't revolve around volume. Even the EMAs we use, that's around volume in a sense because it's taking X amount of candles over a certain amount of time and the volume and VWAP, all that stuff. But anyway, those two books I think are must reads when it comes to understanding volume, which is hugely important. And the reason I put help on all stocks because it is, whether it's large cap, small cap, mid cap, whatever, volume is important. So those were my top 5. Do you have any that you can think of that like jump out for you that I didn't put on here?
Books.
Yeah.
Or I've been focusing so much on psychology here lately.
Yeah, and there is one psychology book I almost put on here that
Yeah.
for me was huge, but
I know what you're gonna say. And
which one?
The Best Loser Wins.
Hell yeah. Y'all get
Yeah.
a psychology book, it needs to be that one. Because the best traders I know lose extremely well. Like they're good at losing.
That's my biggest thing, and that's what's really. I know we're not talking about psychology, but I'll just say for anybody new, since that's what we're doing, learning how to lose is like my biggest thing now, because I made a lot of money in the beginning stages of my trading, but not knowing how to take a loss. I mean, you can buy yourself out of a bad situation 100 times, but that 101, 101st time that it doesn't work, I mean, you're screwed. And so that's, you have to learn how to lose. That's what I always tell people now when they start out. Like what I was explaining to my dad yesterday, he was talking about how he's got a couple just single equities that he watches that he might want to trade. He's like, well, we were talking about, I was like, well, if you bought it here, or if, where, and he's like, yeah, I think I can buy here and it would go to here. I'm like, yeah. And that's solid technical analysis, but where would your stop be? That's a roundabout way of saying it. I mean, you can say it until you're blue in the face, but doing it in the moment, I mean, do you want to be right or do you want to make money?
That's the good. That's the best way to put it. That right there. You want to be right or you want to make money? Because if it comes down to that, people are like, oh shit, I'll be wrong if I can make money. Yeah, we'll see. But
yeah,
you're 100% right.
And making money might mean losing money right now, but something else. I have a bunch of little reminders that pop up on my phone every morning at 8:00, which is for us that's 30 minutes before the open because we're in Central Time Zone. But I have a bunch, but one of them that I've had for a while is, remember, you'd rather be trading one share than not being able to trade at all. So that's just a good one. It's just something to think about. And it's, you might say, oh, well, I want to make money. But I mean, don't oversize to the point where you can't trade anymore, and don't lose so bad that you can't trade anymore. I mean, because then you'd be sitting there saying, man, look at this setup. Like, you can't trade it. You blew your account. I think that's good stuff that, I mean, even us that have been doing this a while, it's still something I have to remind myself of.
Oh yeah, psychology is hugely important, and that book was. So if there is one psychology book we'd recommend, it would definitely be that Best Loser Wins. Tom Howgard, or I don't know how you say his last name, but if you Google Best Loser Wins, it's gonna pop up. Great book. You have to learn how to lose, and one thing I've said multiple times on some of our shows before is like, I don't give a shit if I lose. I try not to give, I try not to give a shit if I lose, because you lose all the time. You just have to minimize your losses, and of course, let your winners be bigger than your losses, or lose more than you win. Whatever your strategy is. But I've gotten better over the years at losing, and hope that I'll continue to get better.
That's right.
But
And I feel like that goes along with technical analysis because, I mean, you can't just say, oh, I'm gonna cut this loss. You know, I think you can't. It can't just be random. You know, like, oh, if it gets too far away from me, I'm gonna cut it. Like, no, you have to say if you're short selling and the stock is at 5, or and you're shorting a stock at 4.95, and you say like the way we short. You know, if
right,
we're shorting into, we don't necessarily always put in a hard stop, soft stop, whatever. But we're sitting at our computers and we got our hotkeys set, and if it's not working, I'm gonna
Yep.
get out of it right there. And I mean, you have to be disciplined enough to do that. So you know, it might be your thing to use the preset stops, but I'll say, hey, look, $5. If this thing breaks over $5 and holds, I'm out.
Yeah, that's
It happened
we
to
do
me
that a
on
lot.
Friday.
Yep.
I mean, we had that stock we were all trading in our little room, Wish.
Yep.
And it already wasn't really something that I'd usually trade.
Right.
And that's what I was explaining to somebody yesterday. I mean, I stopped out and lost like $400. I told all
Yep.
y'all, I mean, I started shorting it around like 990 or whatever it was, added into 10, and I stopped out at 1014.
Yep.
You know, it was like 1,400 shares or something like that, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know, not a huge loss, but I mean, all I could see, this thing was strong. It had a good bit of volume, and the only daily resistance I could see was at like $13. So that's why I stopped out. Well, this thing went about 30 cents further and then tanked like $3 the rest of the day. I would have, that would have been a decent profit.
Yeah.
You have to, I mean, and that time it would have worked. But what about the times it doesn't?
Right. Right. Yep.
And
So
I know that's long winded.
no, you're right.
I
You're
feel like
100%
that's
right.
something that needed to be said to me and drilled into my head when I first started. Like now, it wasn't. It's like I hate to lose, and it's relative. But even for me, I'm like I don't want to lose $400, but
Hell no.
then I still in the day green because I had that PTPI trade and rode it all the way down, and it
Yep.
ended my day green. So I'm fine.
Yep.
And I'd been fine with ending the day red. It's
No,
just
I like what you said to start that whole thing off. Is you want to be right or you want to make money?
yeah, exactly. That's what I say to myself all the time. Do I want to be right or do I want to make money? And then the little analogy that I have of you'd rather be trading one share than not being able to trade. I mean, and that's obviously one share. I'm not going to trade one share. I mean,
Right.
Unless it was like, I don't know.
Tesla when it was $2,000 or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I traded a couple shares of it when it was like that.
Yeah,
But
I did too.
But anyway, man, I'm sorry. I'm getting off on
No,
a
it's
tangent.
all good. Well, we're about to go off on a couple more tangents because we're going to end this with this right here. So, what would we do if we started over with 5K? Because I think we both started roughly with that amount, give or take, in our first account. And we were probably all over the place. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We didn't have any real direction, knowledge. So now we can answer this question to maybe help some people, because if most people start out at, maybe they have the 2,500 for a TZ account or Venom or I think my first account was with E-Trade. I didn't even do short selling when I first started. So what would we do if we started over with 5K? Go ahead, because I know this was so peek behind the curtain, if you will. This was sellers like, we need to throw this in there. I was like, damn it, that's a brilliant idea, because this is this is good. So yeah, you got
I
it.
just think it's important, because I can say this from a standpoint of, so I started with a small amount when I started stock trading in around 2019, and relatively quickly grew from some good situations and everything else up to an over PDT account, and then from then on, quickly made it to a 6-figure account, like very quickly. It was too quick. And I, ended up taking some money out, losing a lot. Well, I've had to start over numerous times, and so it's hard to start over with a smaller amount after you've already, seen the big P&Ls. But
Yep.
I will say you have an advantage if you're just starting out because you don't know what to expect. So put your expectations very low. If you're starting with 5K and you want to grow exponentially, well, I mean, you've got to have your strategy that's doesn't necessarily have to have a high win rate, but you have to have your set risk levels for all of it. And just, I mean, basically, yeah, like I said, just if you're starting with the 5K, have your plan, focus on one thing. If you're going to short sell small caps, just do that in the morning. If you trade mornings like we do, plan out how much you're gonna risk and find your setup, take that trade, and then I wouldn't do anything else. That's how I would do it, and that's one way to do it. I mean, there's a million ways you can skin it to. I mean, you could go long, whatever,
Right.
but that's how I would go about it if I was going to start over with 5K. I would have a strict plan, because if you've got only that much capital, then you can only risk a certain. I mean, you can't afford to be wrong that much.
Right.
So, I mean, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously you're going to be wrong, but you've got to minimize it when you're wrong.
Especially when you first start out.
Yep. I mean, it's easy to go crazy. And, that's when the psychology thing comes into it. Like, if it's going bad, close up shop for the day. Take a walk. I always say that.
Yeah,
In the mornings.
we'll both leave or take walks frequently.
Yep. I say it all the time. Like to you and everybody else, I'll be like, "Hey, man, I've already lost like $500, and it's like 5 minutes into the day. I'm gonna walk for a little bit, come back, and I can usually make it better."
Yeah.
But what would you say about starting over with 5K? Like, how would you do it?
Right. So if I'm starting over with what I know now and have 5K to start over, the first thing I would do, and like what we said at the beginning of this thing, is you have to pick a lane and stay in that lane. And that might take a little bit of upfront research, whether or not you want to trade small caps, large caps, short sell, go long, whatever. Watch all the YouTube videos and educational content you can about that subject matter and determine if that's something that interests you or not. But pick your lane and stay in your lane, because like when I first started out, dude, I was all over the place because I've seen all these successful traders that were doing longs in small caps or short in small caps or long in OTCs or trading this way or this strategy. And I was like literally bouncing all over the place. So I didn't stay in any one area long enough to even find out if I liked it, if it was going to work for me, whatever. So you got to find what works for you. That's how we started this whole video out, is like pick a type of trading equity and then just overarching strategy, whether it's long, short, whatever, and hone in on that, like hyper focus on that one thing. So let's just say I decided to hyper focus on short caps, or shorting small caps, which is what we do now. So you got that part. The next thing I would do, of course, you got your 5K, you put it in a broker account. And this is just me, right? And what I learned from my past experiences. I tried paper trading and thought I was an awesome trader. And then I started trading a real account. So paper trading is trading like fake money, right?
I would recommend anybody just getting started to dabble in paper trading. I would.
Yeah, see, and this is where we differ, right? You like paper trading. And I did it. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's pros to it, right? You can learn the platform or whatever. But what I failed to realize when I first started paper trading and then got into real trading is the emotional aspect of seeing your real life money go away, right? Like I was losing my money and I was like, oh shit. So I
Well,
was
and
getting
and
some
and I'll
emotion.
agree with you on that too, on the emotional aspect of it. I think that the paper trading is really just good to learn a platform. You know, if you're going to use uh, Cobra or what, which I mean, you know, if you're starting out with 30K, I mean, great.
Right.
But if you're
It's
gonna
it. That's good to learn the platform with paper
exactly,
trading.
I think it's good to learn the platform, which I didn't. I didn't learn the platform on the platform I'm using now. I learned it with real money, so I guess it's kind of a
Yeah, you were a little more experienced though. But one thing that I did do that helped me with a smaller account that I would recommend, at least from my experience, is I would even trade one share or 10
yeah.
shares just to get that emotional feel because it's different when it's real money. So even if
It
you
is.
trade with
It
one
is.
share or 10 shares or 100, you'd be really, really small size. And I would recommend you do that for an extended period of time until you find some consistency. Because the great thing about journaling your trades is you can focus on the percent gains or lost on a trade, right? Focus on the percentages, gain or lost, and hone in on a specific edge or strategy. See how your percentages play out over an extended period of time. And then when you see that, then you can size up into those percentages. But the percentages are going to stay the same whether you trade one share or 100,000 shares. The percentages are going to stay the same. So that for me was huge. I'm not one of these that's like, oh, turn off your P&L, whatever. Like if you're calculating your risk and position size, you should know what your P&L is on a trade. Um, so for
Yep.
me, that whatever. But that's my second point. When it comes to an account, especially when you first start out, especially when you're first starting out, like I still do this now. My risk is 1% of my account size. So if my account is 100K, I'm willing to risk 1% of that on a given trade, and that is it. Now, when you have a 5K account, I think you should start out doing that. However, if you really wanted to grow that account at some point with a small account, you're going to have to,
Yep.
I don't want to say all in, but you're going to maybe have to put in 50, 60, 70% of that account on a singular trade that you're really comfortable with to actually physically grow that account. But when you
I mean,
first start out, you could keep the risk tight. But what were you going to
learning
say?
if you're just learning, you're really green. Then yeah, you know, use tiny size or paper trade. Which another reason I just say paper trade is because if you're under PDT, you might have to do some paper trading.
Yeah, that's true. Because if you're under PDT, you only get 3-day trades in a 5-day period, which
Yeah.
sucks, but it's just part of it, which is another. We didn't even say this, but it can be advantageous to have multiple brokers, whether you're under PDT or over PDT, for multiple reasons. And that's something that maybe I don't want to go into too much detail on, but if you're under
Yeah.
PDT and you have two brokers, you get 3-day trades in each broker. So, um,
Exactly. And um, I was gonna say too, it's you know, we were talking about if we started over. If I started over with 5K right now, I would be using all of that 5K on each trade. But uh, that's only because, you know, I feel that my experience level could handle it, you know,
right. Yeah, I would do the same. I'd go all in on any trade I took.
because, yeah, just because I'd have to. But if I had
Hmm.
no experience, then I would not do that, obviously. But,
Right.
you know, for I know how I could risk it. Is I guess what I'm saying. I
Yeah,
would,
yeah, yeah. We would set a risk accordingly, but we would go all in on the trade, but have a set risk at a certain point or whatever.
yeah. But no,
But
like with my regular account that I trade on now, I'm not going all in.
no, hell no, I
You know,
don't ever do that. I don't really ever go above a quarter, 30%. maybe on some of the best setups, but I mean, it's a good setup. But
I mean,
that's
there'll be
just me.
days that I use most of my buying power, but
Yeah,
hey,
I'll
man,
have days where it's spread out. Like my buying power, of course, or over the course of 3 or 4 positions is largely gone, but I don't have any one position that is 100% all in.
I
I don't do
used to
that.
though. I used
Yeah,
to.
I did too. I did too. Don't do that. We don't do that anymore. It's a bad practice to get into. But
Yeah, you
yeah.
can lose a big 5-figure position
Yep.
in an hour if you
Shit in
a few
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah. So the last thing I would just wanted to touch on real quick, educational material, right? There's endless educational materials out there. I would venture to say 90% of them are complete bullshit, regurgitated, whatever. But there are some rooms that have solid track records, profitability, people that know what the hell they're talking about. We're not in any rooms per se anymore, but I learned a lot back in my day. Um, I learned a lot from, well, now they're not part of the Tim Sykes crew, but a lot of those guys that were coming up back in the day, I learned a lot from those guys. But anyway, IU, Investors Underground, like I was in that room for a long time. They have tons of material, and I learned a ton of stuff from that room. Pros and cons with rooms too. I think the best things I got out of the rooms wasn't the chat room. Those are freaking overwhelming. It was the actual
Yeah,
materials that they provided that I gathered a lot of education from. The chat rooms to me were just is too much noise. But anyway, just do your homework, man. Like so much of this stuff out here is bullshit. If you're seeing people only post massive gains, no losses, it's bullshit. They're lying or they're not showing the whole total picture. Like in real life stock trading, people lose all the time. 90% of the people that do this lose, but 90% of the people on Twitter win. So the math ain't mathing. Like we lose all the time. Just last month, I had a max loss, and it happens. It'll happen again, but it's just part of it. But anyway, hopefully this was helpful to some degree. I don't really have anything else that I was going to go into too much detail on, unless you do.
No, I was just gonna say on the topic of rooms. I mean, we do have our little room, and if you sat through this whole video, DM us. Maybe you could come check it out.
It's free. There's no weird stuff. There's no, I don't know, fees or money involved. It's just
We're not
we
gonna
talk.
get you.
Yeah, we talk about our trades. We post them. If there's because we got some people that are brand new, like have never placed a trade, and they ask
Yep.
questions. We try our best to answer them because we know what it was like. It's like I know when I first started, I was afraid to ask seasoned traders or people who I thought were seasoned traders questions because I don't want to look dumb.
I did too.
But that's stupid. That's a bad mindset to have. So like, yeah, man, hit us up. We got our Twitter handles right there. DM us.
Reach out. We're happy to help. That's why we're doing this. We don't make any money off of this. We just
Yep.
like to do this. Yeah,
It's fun. This is fun for us. So,
it's our
like I
craft.
said, yeah, we're gonna put links in the description for all the different tools we talked about. Trade ideas and Cobra and Trader Sync and all those things. We're gonna put the descriptions and the websites for those in the description so you can check them out. Like he said, if you have questions, DM us. If you have questions, you can leave comments. Same old stuff. Like, subscribe, as they say. If you like it, let us know. If you want more information on a particular subject, let us know, because we can do videos on pretty much anything that we can talk about. We're from the South. If we can do one thing, it's talk.
That's right.
So, let us know if you have a certain topic you want to hear about, and we'll chop it up, and then we'll put it out there. So we are at an hour and 20 minutes. So I think we have done enough damage today.
That's right. I agree.
All right. Well, as always, appreciate y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, share, etc., etc. Let us know how you liked it, didn't like. And yeah, man, like you said, if you have questions, DM us. And until the next one, peace.
Peace.
All right, big dog. I'll holler at you tomorrow.
We'll see you.
Back it up with this.